A call to order the September 28th school committee meeting. We had an executive session. However, there were no votes taken in executive session. First item on the agenda is approval of the August 24th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Are there any questions on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. We have no correspondence. We have no one who signed up for public comments. Moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda.
Motion
I
made
move
to
the
approve.
agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
So, motion made and seconded. Questions on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Goho.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata, members of the committee. So the first item is I would request approval of the Jrotc Instructor Agreement contained in your packet. We've been very fortunate to attract and hire Sergeant Jose Lobos, who is an experienced Jrotc instructor. Mr. Pollack and I visited him in his classroom here at the high school about a week ago. Pleased to report that everything is moving in a positive direction, and I would ask the committee's approval to approve his agreement.
Move passage.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B.
Next item on the agenda, I'd like to provide the committee with an update of the status of our search for a new full-time athletic director. So the posting on School Spring closed on Friday. Happy to report that we've had 45 applicants for the position, both internal and external candidates. So there is a committee that has been formed, including Mrs. McGill, Mr. Gilmore, Mr. Mellon, and teachers and parents from all 3 of those schools. No interviews have yet taken place. They're in the process of reviewing the applications, determining which applicants meet the criteria established in the job posting. And then over the next few weeks, interviews will commence. So in your packet is a contract template for an athletic director. As you know, if we hire a candidate from within, if that's the most qualified person, we already have contract terms for that person as defined by the collective bargaining agreement. However, if we hire someone from the outside, and as again, let me just stress, there is no predetermination whether it's going to be inside or outside, no interviews have even taken place. But we need to have contract terms in place that the district does for this position. So essentially what was done with that template, as you know, several months ago, probably a year or 2 ago, the committee approved several contract templates. One was for a non-certified administrator. And so working with Mr. Scungio's office, we took that template that the committee has already approved and tweaked it to fit the position of potentially a full-time athletic director. There's been one addition to that contract since it was distributed to you on Friday. In the compensation and transportation section, you notice that is left blank. I inserted a line for the transportation if that becomes a part of any agreement with any outside candidate, that it is not to exceed $1,000. So also you'll notice that the salary is blank, and that is the whole concept. The committee approves blank contract templates that are applicable going forward, and then you have approved a companion compensation policy. So the way that compensation policy works is it provides guidelines for me as the superintendent in terms of if an outside candidate is hired, again, an inside candidate, it would be governed by the contract, but an outside candidate, we would be able to develop a compensation package not to exceed what is currently budgeted for that position, considering the salary and the health care currently budgeted for the person currently in the position. So long-winded version, but I wanted to make sure that I've given all of the pertinent information to the committee. The plan is to hopefully have someone appointed by early November to have some overlap time with Mr. Williams, who is retiring right around the Christmas break. And then the new person would be the full-time athletic director from that point going forward. So I would request a motion to approve the template as submitted.
So move. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? I just have just one comment, one question. So the template allows you to basically answer any questions that the applicants may have.
Correct.
And I would assume that you assign the high school principal to do the evaluation, or a team, or how
That's
does
a
that
good point.
work?
In the contract, I believe we noted that the superintendent and/or designees. So the way it works in districts currently who have a full-time athletic director overseeing middle and high school, it's primarily the high school principal with input from the middle school principals.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, I would request approval of the special education mentor job description. This is a position that is totally funded by the American Recovery Rescue Act funds, no impact to the operating budget.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is I would request approval of the committee for the district data director job description as submitted in your packet.
Move. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item on the agenda, as everyone knows, we received word from the Secretary of State's office that on the November ballot, we will be asking our voters, our residents, to vote on a school building project, which includes 3 new elementary schools, a new administration building, and educational and safety enhancements to our middle schools and our high school. So we need to begin to inform the public of what exactly that project would incur and include. So in your packet are conceptual renderings and brochures that we would like to send home to all of the students in the district, both electronically and in hard copy form. But the chair would request that the school committee see and approve those renderings prior to them being released to the public. So I would request a motion to approve the renderings.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is an MOA, and I would request approval of the Local 920 North Providence Federation of Teachers Memorandum of Agreement regarding the right to read proficiency training, which is the result of legislation at the Rhode Island Legislative Branch.
So move.
The motion and a second. Comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item, I will turn the podium over to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Seitzinger. As I informed the committee several months ago, North Providence was identified as a district eligible for additional federal funding through a variety of criteria, including accountability and the impact of COVID on our population. And so we have decided to use that federal money primarily in 2 ways, as you will hear from Mrs. Seitzinger. One is to accelerate the legislative mandate that we have high-quality curriculum in place in all of the core subject areas. And using this money will significantly relieve the operating budget moving forward. We're setting aside approximately $800,000 of this additional federal funding that will not have to be charged to the operating budget. And then in the second piece, Ms. Van Avery will also report to you on our efforts to create classrooms so that we can educate more of our students right here in district rather than outsourcing them to out-of-district placements. And that also will have a fiscal impact on the district as well in a positive way, but most importantly, improve the educational outcomes of our students and allow us to educate them in the least restrictive environment, which is federal law. So, Mrs. Seitzinger and Ms. Van Avery.
Thank you, Superintendent Goho. You just covered that first slide so beautifully, so thank you so much. And good evening to the school committee also. So we just, again, just to reiterate, as Superintendent Goho said, this fund came out of ESSER funding. It was an additional grant, and this district, among other several districts, qualified. We were kind of like, as they said, on the cusp, and we, of course, said, yes, we want to try to, qualify for this, and because of the great funding involved, and as Superintendent Goho said, we really looked at all of our data. It was quite a rigorous process with our leadership team. We have a leadership team. We also connected to Proving Ground, which is out of Harvard, that RIDE connected us to. And we had several meetings. I'd say we connected to probably about 9 meetings. And again, it was quite rigorous, but it was a really reflective process about our data in our district, both quantitative and qualitative data, and really vetted us through a process of really looking at what do we really want to improve in our district for our students. And so this is where we decided on the high quality curriculum in terms of instruction, and then also the redesign of our special education classrooms for our therapeutic classrooms. So that kind of gives you the background on that. And then this is just about the funding, and basically it shows you what we received in terms of ESSER funding, and then the matching dollars through the LEAP grant. And so the total funding there. And this is more about the areas of focus. So there's several areas that the DSP, which is a district support program, allows for, and that's equity, expanded learning, instruction, student well-being, and student engagement. So we decided to, based on our data and need, decided to focus on equity and instruction. So I'm going to let Ms. Van Arie speak to the equity piece because it's about our differently abled students and how we're focusing based on our data.
Thank you. So one of the things that we are constantly looking at is all of our scores. And so our special education students continue to be lower performing. And so when we started looking at the data with principals and all of our teams, we actually recognized that we were doing so much pull-out activity, meaning our students were not actually in the gen ed environment receiving the same level of curriculum that all of the other students were doing. So that was number one. We need to have more of our students who are differently abled in our general ed classrooms with the special educators going in and supporting that. And so we have a whole mission this year on co-teaching. As well as the special education mentor. We really want all of the new faculty coming in to have that same mindset of inclusion first. And so we wanted to focus on that. We also wanted to focus on math. We continue to struggle with our differently abled students on our math scores, and so we knew we needed to make significant improvement. So working hand in hand with the assistant superintendent and our curriculums, we really, again, wanted to make sure we exposed all of our students to the same high level, high quality curriculum materials. And in that same process, we were also looking at creating our own 2 therapeutic classrooms. We saw that we had a very specific need in terms of a gap in our special ed continuum. And we wanted to provide or have our students who are in out-of-district placements in our districts having the same level of high-quality curriculum and instruction. And so that is our equity focus.
Just one question before we get off equity. I know a couple of years ago we had a group come before us. They conducted an equity evaluation. Was that strictly for staff, or did that include students?
That included students, yes.
So
they were asked, they did a survey with students and families.
Okay. So this addresses those
Yes.
concerns that they came up with?
Well, I would say it's highly related to that data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the actual number of when we say 3 to 5%? How many students are with the overall engagement? Special students, and it's X number of students, or is it based on percentage per student?
Yeah, so we were looking at RICAS scores when we put this forward. And so we have a control group, and then so I'm not quite sure of the specific number. This was driven by the Department of Ed.
Yeah, I have to look at that and I can get back to you on that number. But
Yeah.
we did look at we really dug down into the data deeply in terms of looking at the specifics. So yes, we can get that.
Yep.
If you're using RICAS,
Yeah.
you would have the scale scores of each student that you're
Correct.
monitoring, so you'd be able to share with us the growth for each of those scales.
You
yeah,
bet.
we definitely
That's
have
our
to-
intent.
Yeah.
And we have to do that as part of this.
Which will be easy to do with the renal and RICAS. So, I just wanted to point out a few things in terms of the other areas of instruction, but in terms of expanded learning and student well-being, those have not been ignored in this district at all over the last couple of years. We've done a lot around. Let's just speak to this past summer with the summer learning academies we had, K to 12 and ESY, which are very successful, and you did receive data on that. So we will be following those students from those programs and see how they're doing this year and what the impact of those programs were from the summer. So I wanted to just mention that. And also we do academies and other enrichment programs throughout the year outside of the school day for all of our students to support them. And then in terms of student well-being, that we hired our SEL coordinator who's doing an amazing job. And next month you'll have something in your packet which kind of speaks to what she's been doing. And she'll probably be doing a presentation around the January time period because we want to let her inform you of what she's doing with the classrooms, with the schools, with our students, and the implementation of that ruler SEL program, which has been phenomenal. So this year is all about learning about the program. The teams all have schools that have learned about the program. They're educating the rest of the teachers and staff, and she's supporting that effort at every school. So it's been really, really successful. She just created a newsletter that was sent out to everyone to explain what she's been working on, and so far the feedback has been extremely positive. So I wanted to mention that in terms of what we've been doing with student well-being and of course student engagement. So those are there. They're not being ignored. And the next piece that we're highlighting is the high quality instructional materials. Well, the curriculum in terms of Reveal Math at the elementary level that's been introduced this year. We've received initial training. They will be supported by our math interventionist and coach at the elementary level, which has begun and is already going very well. We will receive more PD and more training for our teachers as well in terms of being, what they need for their own classrooms and their instruction. And so that's going to help us align our curriculum across the whole district, but also just hopefully increasing achievement across all of our grade levels in elementary, but specifically for this purpose for grades 3 through 5, including our differently abled population of students. We also wanted to mention that we have other things in place at the Tier 1 level, which is the classroom level. We have PALS Math, which is another intervention that teachers are using with students. We also have purchased Bridges Math, which is more of a Tier 2, Tier 3 intervention for those students who have real struggles in math in terms of conceptual knowledge and skills. So we feel that we have some really great things in place. IXL is just an additional practice. We don't look at that as a real, it's just another source of practice for our students in terms of math rotation, station rotation, or flex model. But all of our teachers are really excited about the math curriculum. We're excited about it, and we're excited to see growth. I think that's it, right? That's the last slide. I think the next slide just basically breaks down the funding for each area, basically, and in terms of the curriculum and the piece for our special ed differently abled students as well. So that kind of goes through and kind of breaks it down more as far as how we're doing that. So we have professional learning and instructional coaching, including math interventions to support math academic achievement. And we're also conducting learning walks. We're actually conducting learning walks across the district in math and ELA this year, which I am super excited about. We started them last year at the elementary level, and they went very well. And we really saw progress from those learning walks because I think teachers did not view them as evaluative. They're not evaluative. It's all to support professional learning, to give us feedback, to give them feedback on how we can improve our instruction in the classroom and our schools. And so that's been really positive. So we will be doing learning walks as part of this process. And also, as Ms. Van Avery said, the implementation of co-teaching and really more inclusive models. So super excited about that. And then you want to go over the last of that last one?
Sure. I think this is an awesome opportunity to invest some of this is what we're calling almost starter funds into our therapeutic classrooms to really get this up and running and also have more students return back to district. and the least restrictive environment. So again, investing in that I think is a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great point. So obviously we're trying to make sure that we use these federal dollars wisely, and we're always mindful of not creating positions that we can't sustain. So on the curriculum end, we'll be purchasing our high quality curriculum, one-time expenditure, so that's not taxing the budget. And then on the therapeutic classrooms, the goal is that students who currently are being serviced outside the district can come back to the district to offset and support the costs of the staffing. So I give you and then Ms. Casanelli a lot of credit for helping us manage this financially as well as educationally. So thank you.
Just to clarify, the years 2021, 2022, that's where the priorities came out of. How long is the funding for? When does it end? I know it's sometimes the federal grant.
I believe that's in
Is it-
January of next school year. So
January 2024?
yeah, it's a year and a half, but two fiscal years.
Yeah, I think it's 24.
And just remind me again, what does DSP stand for?
District Support
Plan.
Plan. I would say program, but it's just a support plan. I know there's a lot of acronyms. I'm sorry. And for anyone who wants to know what LEAP means, we do have that too. It's really about equity and accelerated pathways. So it's learning, equity, and accelerated pathways, just so people know. But the other thing I wanted to mention briefly is that we will be, as part of this process in our protocol, we are going to be sending out a survey to parents to get their feedback too on these focus areas and what their thoughts are too, and that we will continue to do that and throughout the year, and that's part of our plan. So just wanted to mention that too. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just say I know that the last time, Mrs. Picard, you had a question about the screening scale that we might be doing for students for SEL screening. We have determined that we're going to be using one that's called the Student Risk Screening Scale, which is free, which is always good. And we're going to be doing that 3 times a year. We're starting it in October, and it's just a risk assessment for general all students. And our SEL coordinator is coordinating that data for us, and we'll be looking at that 3 times a year.
How long does that take to administer?
It's using the teachers are going to administer it to students. It's 12 items that teachers use. The teachers do it to rate their students, and we want them to get to know them. So you're supposed to do it at least after 30 days. So it'll be perfect in October. Yeah. So I just want to follow up on that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is school committee reports.
Thank you. So I have been thinking through this idea as it's across the nation for student liaisons to school committees, some school boards. I know one of our colleagues in Westerly have already adopted it, and I've spoken with a few of them. But I do think this town has a history of an excellent Student Government Day, one of the favorite events across the town. But it's one day. So I was thinking of there's other opportunities that we can think about where students can play a vital role in communicating concerns, needs, and opinions of the student body. So I would like to propose that the school committee approve and consider a student liaisons, which the idea, my thinking, and I'm happy to review it and to refine it. I was thinking you start junior year, you would bring on 2 to 4 juniors who would do a 2-year term, and then each year we would have them apply. They would be juniors, they would be members of the team per the superintendent, maybe school committee members, high school administrators, to interview students to get a diverse group. They would serve in an advisory capacity. They would be expected to attend monthly meetings. They could rotate through on certain agenda topics. They would be expected to return to the student body and spread the word about what's happening in the district. Basically, overall, they would, assist us to get a well-rounded view of student experiences and ensure we hear their voices of the very students that we serve. As we make many policy decisions that directly impact our students, having student representation on the committee in a liaison role enables the committee to gain important insights from students and find out their thoughts on issues that relate directly to them. They would be strictly advisory, like I said. They'd be non-voting participants. And my goal is that I think we should strive to ensure students are seen and heard. I have like a very simple application that they could apply to. Overall, the goal would be, again, to gain important input from our high school students, enable the school committee to make more well-informed decisions, allow students to learn how the school district and school committee works, and help students learn about the importance of committee decisions and civic engagement. Anybody have any questions? So I guess if there's no questions.
What are you suggesting?
So I would like to make a motion to have the committee move towards a student liaison. Now let's do this. Make a motion to have student liaisons as part of a student advisory to the school committee starting this year. Time frame based on the superintendent's evaluation of the review.
Okay, the chair is not going to accept the motion based on the fact that it wasn't listed as discussion for approval, and I think this is the first time the committee is hearing a lot of the information.
I'm happy to come back to the next meeting. That's it again.
Excuse me. You read off a list of things that this individual student would do. I think this is the first time the committee is hearing this,
Correct. I just put it on the agenda.
and you're putting it up for a motion, and none of us have it to review.
I'm happy to amend my motion and remove the original motion and ask that the committee consider. I have a draft, like I said. It's just to have, this was more, like you said, a dialogue to be able to hear
You
comments.
can put that in writing, and it'll be on next month's agenda.
Sure. I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other input that they'd like to provide before I draft, so that when I draft, I could consider the input?
Anybody have any comments? Okay. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. You wanna speak to the issue? Okay, can you come to the microphone and chair will allow you. No, the chair will allow you. That's fine. Sure. Just state your name.
I don't really see a lot of parents here.
Just name and address.
I don't think my address is necessary. I live in the town. My first name is Jasmine. Are you all parents, like, here for this, or are you all part of this committee too?
What's your last name?
Jeremiah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I heard what she said. It sounds really like something interesting that would benefit the students. So one thing I want to point out is it's my first time here, so I just don't know how protocol is. But I am concerned about some of the things that are being discussed here and whether or not things are going to move forward. And I constantly keep hearing it's not on an agenda. Let's move it over to the next thing, So as a person who's been here for the first time, is this typical? Like, so if something isn't put on a piece of paper, you can't address, like, bring a new topic in and discuss it, or you have to kind of petition something first and then discuss it later at another meeting? Any parent, actually. Yeah, any parent. Okay, so how long does that usually take?
There's a form that you fill out.
A form. It's not something I can, like, bring up right now today, like a concern or anything.
You can speak to it, but we can't comment on it. It's not on the agenda.
Okay, but it's something that could be brought up later on, maybe voted on something, some of the ideas that the parents have in the town. So I'm here, I'm kind of representing the McGuire families. So that's like, again, the rest of our group wasn't able to come. So my first name is Jasmine, so I don't like to be, like, spoken to this way. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, I understand.
If issue. There's a form that you fill out, request from the school district, the form. You fill that out, submit it, and that gets on the agenda.
Okay.
Those are the two ways.
Okay. And then everything moving forward from that point on could be addressed at like the next meeting? Is that how it would go the next time? It would be put on here and then addressed? On the agenda. Okay. So everything has to go through an approval process first before discussion. Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay. Okay.
we're bound by open meeting laws, so you might want to look those up too. So that gives you parameters
Okay.
of how the things happen. Open meeting laws, Secretary of State. So
Thank
if
you. I
it's not on
appreciate
the
that.
agenda, we can't
Right.
just stick it on there and start voting on it.
Right. Okay. I understand. Yes.
Got it. And I was trying to get his attention, not you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm like, yes.
I'm happy to wait after the meeting. I'm giving my communication, so if you have any questions, you
Yes.
can call me.
Again, I apologize. It's my first time attending one. I was encouraged to do that today, to participate. I'm here, and I want to be a part of,
For
like,
coming.
to make a difference and speak up for our McGuire families and just kind of be heard. You know, I've been part of the PTA, now converting to PTO for the last 3 years. There have been some topics that had not been addressed, and I feel like if we're not being represented, how are you going to know? But I didn't know the protocol, so that's why I was just wondering. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, item B, student resource officers, Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I put this on the agenda for this, basically for discussion purposes. I want us to look into the feasibility of having adding more school resource officers. We currently have 2 officers, one at each middle school and one at the high school. And we have 1 resource officer covering 5 elementary schools. And I realize, and by the way, this is not something that I wanted to mention to disdain the person who covers the 5 elementary schools. She does a wonderful job. But I really think that we should look into the feasibility of maybe adding more school resource officers. If it becomes a budgetary problem, maybe we can also look into the feasibility of hiring former police officers who are retired. But I'm concerned about one person handling 5 elementary schools. And so I really like us to look into the feasibility of doing something about this if we can. Thank you very much.
So you're asking the administration to review the recommendation and attach a fiscal note to it, see what the cost is. I just know that one of the issues is just manpower with the police department. But the administration will put together a report and come back to us next month with that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 9 is old business. We have no old business. Number 10, new business. Mr. Goho.
Thank you, Dr. Pilata. I would request a motion of the committee to approve the Local 1033 collective bargaining agreement as contained in your packet.
So move. Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed?
Recusal?
Sorry. Excuse me?
I have a recusal, not a nay.
You got that? Norma Jean? I'm recusing, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And 1 recusal. Motion carries.
Next item, I would request approval from the committee as required for the 2022-2023 updated distance learning plan. So just a little bit of background. As you know, the Council on Elementary and Secondary Ed and RIDE have granted districts the ability to use up to 5 days as distance learning days for inclement weather or other emergencies. And we developed the plan last year and submitted it. It was ultimately approved. We have since updated that plan, submitted it to the Department of Ed, and so I'm asking for the committee to approve the submission, knowing that we may receive some information from the Department of Ed, which would require us to further update the plan, which we will according to the feedback that they provide, and then we will share that feedback with the committee as well. But it does require that the plan be approved by the school committee.
Move passage.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions?
Questions?
Mrs. Picard?
So in the plan, it says that all certified staff, 8:30 to 2:30. When will we inform parents? I mean, obviously, we don't want them to know the day of an distance learning day. So is that something that will go public through the principal bulletins?
Yeah, I would definitely, this is going to be posted once it's revised. And, even since then, I did update a couple of little things. The biggest piece, I just want to reiterate, that is that we have to have 3 hours of synchronous instruction. And I explain what, for parents, what's the difference between synchronous, asynchronous, which, I think a lot of parents know. But yes, we would definitely be informing parents way ahead of time. This will be posted on the district website, and it will be in Spanish as well. I didn't want to do that now because, there could be some iterations of it. But I had an assistant superintendent meeting this morning with many assistant superintendents and RIDE, and they are in the process of reviewing and giving us formal feedback. Their other concern was about attendance. So it was kind of, minor items that they talked about, but attendance in terms of making sure that attendance is taken. If we do have a distance learning day for elementary, it would be at the beginning of the day. And, usually they have one teacher, so it would be at the beginning of that day. Middle school, high school would be at the beginning of the learning period or the, whatever the period class is. So they just want to make sure that kids are present where our students are present when they need to be for distance learning. So that's all I know at this point, but I can tell you that we were one of the first districts to submit, so we're proud of that. And looking forward to that feedback. And the guidance was updated, just so parents know too. It was updated a little bit by RIDE in terms of the last few years. So we did follow that guidance and adhere to what was changed for that.
Thank you.
All set, Ms. Picard? Okay. That was a motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Item C, I would request approval by the committee for the special education contract with the Tide School. This was placed out to bid. If you recall, the committee gave us permission to move forward and award these bids so that contracts would be in place for the delivery of services for the start of the school year, pending successful execution of a contract that would be vetted by legal. So these last two contracts that are on the agenda, we're in that process and have emerged now ready for your approval.
So move.
A second. Questions?
Yes. Are we talking C and D together?
If the committee chooses to, yeah, then we could accept the motion that would be through up to the chair. Yeah. Approval of those two contracts, the Tide School and then Section D of the FBS school.
They mirror
FBS
each other.
contract.
So can we do that together? Yeah.
So D and E.
C and D together. They
E.
mirror each other.
C and D.
Yep.
There's a motion on the floor and a second. Any additional comments or questions for items C and D? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item E.
Item E, I would request approval in the disposition of the school committee of the suicide prevention policy. The policy does allow you to either approve it tonight or approve it for a first read this evening. So whatever your preference is, it's up to the committee. So I would request action this evening.
So moved.
Second.
And I would say, as part of the motion, to approve it tonight.
There was a second to that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, everybody understands it's a first reading and there's a motion to approve. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Same for item F. There is a policy that is new to the district. It would be the fund balance policy. As you know, we have accumulated a surplus, so we would like to have a policy in place and some parameters for the appropriate use of that surplus. And so I would request a motion, regarding the committee's preference regarding a first read or approval of the fund balance policy contained in your packet.
So my motion is to approve it effective tonight.
I'll second that.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, I would ask approval of a budget amendment regarding a 403 employer match. And before we put a motion on the floor, I'm just going to ask Mrs. Casanelli to explain what the issue is and the circumstances.
So it came to my attention, and it's actually in the teacher contract, that we do a match to the teachers who are contributed to their 403B each year. Normally, the practice has been for this to happen, actually, the payment to be made at the end of the school year, but it's in the new budget year. And what happens is, what's been happening is that people have left and they close that 403B account out, and we're trying to make contributions into it, and they're kicking back to us. So this has been a problem in the past, and we thought it would make more sense to make these contributions throughout the year. So if someone was to leave employment mid-year, they're up to date on our part of the contribution. It'll shut off at the set amount per the contract, but there's no issue of this being paid later at a later date and someone's account being closed and things like that, because the calculation is normally done at the end of the year. But if we have it set up as an automatic payment each pay period with a shut off at that amount, then we've paid it in the current budget year where it's actually been earned, and it alleviates that problem if someone leaves employment or even retires and they close that account before we have a chance to make that contribution. So it was suggested that this would be a clean practice. We discussed it with the union. They had no issue with it. The only problem is this budget year, now we've paid the contributions to the fund for last year, and then we'd again be making a second payment to those funds this year. So it's kind of a double hit to that line item in the budget, but then it corrects itself going forward. It's just we wanted to bring it to your attention that it will impact the line this year. Now, overall in the budget, depending on how this year ends, it may not impact the budget all that much. That's something we won't know till the year ends. But we do have a fund balance if we wanted to cover that expense later on in the year if we discovered we were going to run into an issue.
Mr. Chairman.
Question?
So it's a one-time hit, and going forward, you fix it so that it's progressive.
So it'll just
and
be
it
the
just follows
regular
up fiscal
budgeted
year.
number. Yep.
And what are we talking, 50, 60,000?
It's about $60,000.
Okay. I think it's I don't want to say gamble, but I think it's a policy worth doing, and I don't think the money's is like, oh my God, we can't do that.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a substantial dollar amount considering the size of the budget itself.
But it's a prudent policy to do it that way.
Yeah.
So I would certainly
I
support
think it's
that.
cleaner, and it pays it to date, and it keeps it from being an issue at the year end.
Yep, I don't have a concern with that, Lisa, but I like what you said about having the notation. I think based on the previous budget reviews, it would be nice if there's changes like that there'd be a note column so it's specific till he tells us why there's an issue. So
Sure.
when we do the, under, over kind of thing.
Comparison, right.
So this way it's clear and that we'll be like, oh yes, Lisa mentioned to that September.
No problem.
Thank you.
Motion made to approve.
Any other additional comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, I would request approval by the committee for the snow removal bid as contained in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, I would request approval by the committee of the bid for the North Providence High School exterior doors, which would be the doors to the entrance facing Mineral Spring Avenue. So these would be upgraded safety doors. There are two methods by which we could pay for this. Originally, it was contained in our list of safety items that we brought to you, was it last month or the month before?
I want to say it was June.
Yeah, with the based on our reimbursement rate, we would get reimbursed on that. But recently we became aware, you probably read in the breeze as well, about the equity initiative and another set of funds provided to districts. And what we would like to do is remodel the auditorium. Now, technically, those doors are part of the entrance to the auditorium, so we do have a meeting set up with Mario Carreno at RIDE, and we could possibly tap into that fund because it would come at a higher reimbursement rate. So we'll take whatever ride we'll approve, but we're just asking you to approve the bid.
So moved.
Second.
So you're just looking for a fiscal pathway to make that happen?
Correct.
Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is I would request, again, the disposition of the committee. There is a policy in your packet regarding parameters and guidelines for our staff regarding interactions with students and each other. It's called a Code of Conduct Policy. Thank you to Director Hicks and Attorney Scungio for helping us put together this policy. You've read about, obviously, certain issues that have occurred throughout the state. So this is in response to make sure that we have appropriate guidelines for interactions with our staff and students, and I would request a motion to approve that policy.
So
as
moved.
submitted.
Motion and a second. Anyone have any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item is I would request approval of the committee of the 2022-23 school committee meeting calendar as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, I would request a motion for the removal of obsolete textbooks from North Providence High School.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Goho. Next item on the agenda, item number 11, approval of bills. Motion made,
Second.
seconded. Questions on any of the bills? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 12, use of property, as submitted.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion and a second. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have no requests to address the committee. Item 14, we have no pending business. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion